Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us today. I know it can be difficult to get to these Wednesday webinars when you have a busy day. We're thrilled that you were able to make it here live with us. And we want to make sure we honor your time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I am Stephanie Crawford. I'm Executive Director of IDEA. We are lucky to have Skillstruck with us today, and you may not know anything about Chat for Schools, and that is about to change. So I'm super excited to be here for this. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Margaret right now to let her introduce herself and to get started. Oh, one final reminder, Illinois educators, you can get one PDH for being here today. If this is your first time, remember that'll be thrown into the chat closer to the end of the session. You'll be able to use the link. And because we know sometimes you can be hesitant to ask questions when it's being recorded, we will have time at the end where we'll stop the recording and you'll be able to ask any questions that you have then too. If you have questions throughout, please feel free to use the chat and we'll be able to address them there. Okay, now without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Margaret.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I know it's the end of the day, probably the end of your school day, so I really appreciate your time and spending a little bit of time with us today. I'm excited to talk to you all about AI and Chat for Schools. I do have a slides presentation, as you can see on the screen. You can either just go to that URL yourself, or I will also, let's see, I'll paste it in the chat here. So go ahead and click on those slides if you'd like to follow along. There's not too much in terms of things to click on and things like that, but figured that I would share that out with you now in case you do want to follow along. And if you'd like to, don't have to, of course, but if you want to toss your position, district, even your favorite holiday food, I'm getting really excited for the holidays, in the Zoom chat as we get started here, just so we can kind of get a feel for the people that we have on the call with us today. Really want this to be, as interactive as you'd like it to be. You can participate in the chat. Feel free to unmute if you're comfortable doing that. There will be some discussion questions that I pose and things like that. And then some time at the end where you can actually just play around with our new tool, Chat for Schools. So we'll make sure we have time for that. We'll make sure we have time for questions at the end as well, in case there's anything else that you are wondering. And yeah, we'll take some time to just kind of talk about AI in education as well to start. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So just to introduce myself first, my name is Margaret. I am a partnership manager with Skillstruck. I cover the Midwest and a little bit of the East Coast as well. I'm based in Chicago, born and raised in Illinois. I have actually never lived anywhere else my entire life, which is not very interesting, but I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. But I went on to Illinois to study elementary and ESL and bilingual education. And then I came back to the suburbs, taught fourth grade out there near O'Hare Airport in Wooddale, if you're familiar with that suburb, for a few years. And now I work for Skillstruck and I'm just 100% a teacher advocate, educator advocate, really passionate about getting awesome resources in the hands of both teachers and students. So really excited to chat with you all today, talk about AI, and just have a really collaborative and awesome discussion around this really, really big and kind of intimidating topic in education right now. I see a few people adding in their positions and things in the chat, so that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so just to break the ice a little bit before we get started, we have some AI generated jokes. So apologies in advance, they're very cheesy, but I figure this would be kind of a fun way to get started before we jump into anything too serious. So here's an initial dad joke that we have for our icebreaker. So why don't scientists trust atoms? If you have an idea of what the answer might be, you can throw it in the chat if you'd like. I'll give everyone a minute. And maybe you've heard these. Some of these are kind of like classic teacher jokes, I feel like, so I apologize if there are ones that you've already heard. Awesome. Oh, I like that. That actually isn't what it is, but that is really, really good. They have split personalities. That's hilarious. And awesome. I see we've got some teachers in here, mentors, trainers. Wonderful. All right. Because they make up everything. So cheesy. All right, let's do another one. So little less cheesy, one that will resonate with educators specifically. Why did the math book look so sad? This one I feel like some people might know. Going once, going twice. Because they have so many problems. Oh, so sad. All right, one last one before you guys get sick of me. Any jokes for computer science teachers? I don't know if we have any computer science teachers on board, but our company overall is computer science based. So here's a final computer science based joke. Why do programmers prefer dark mode? And Ronnie, who's on here from Skillstroke with me, you can't answer in case you know. Why do programmers prefer dark mode? Because light attracts bugs. All right, enough of the cheesy dad jokes. We're going to jump in and we're going to just start by chatting a little bit about ChatGPT, about AI. We'll talk through kind of, how all this started, what your feelings are, what your experience levels are with AI and ChatGPT at the moment. And then, like I said, later on, we'll have some time to discuss and explore how AI can really help you in your day-to-day tasks, whether that be professional or personal. So first, what is ChatGPT? So many of you probably already know this, and in a couple slides, we'll get into kind of sharing a little bit about our comfort levels and experience levels with AI. But overall, we've got a couple different definitions on the screen, but we asked it to actually explain what it is as if it were talking to a second grader, because it seems like that would be a little bit easier to understand when it is really this complex, very, very complicated tool. So the way that ChatGPT explains what it is to a second grader is ChatGPT is like a magical talking robot that can answer your questions and have conversations with you. It works by reading the words you type and using its super smart brain to figure out the best way to respond, just like how your brain helps you answer questions. It's like having a friendly, chatty robot friend who knows a lot of things and wants to help you learn and have fun. So obviously a very kid-friendly definition, but that is really what AI and chatbots are. They're kind of like these magical talking tools that can be kind of like your co-pilot as you complete different tasks. And we'll talk about a lot of awesome use cases, like I said, to help tools like this just help you in your day-to-day lives. So here's a little data on how quickly ChatGPT grew and just started to have an impact on all of our lives. I think this is just incredible. You can see this is essentially a graph that shows these different platforms and how quickly they were able to reach 1 million users on their platform. For example, Netflix launched in 1999, which feels really early. I don't feel like, oh, sorry, yes, a couple questions in the chat. Yes, you guys will get credit for this. You get a PDH hour and you'll be able to get that at the end from Stephanie. So Netflix, like I said, launched in 1999, feels a little early. I don't remember Netflix being available in 1999, but I guess it was. And it took 3.5 years to reach 1 million users. So it took a little bit of time to really, get up and running. And then we have a couple different platforms that we all know and probably use at this point in time, like Spotify and Instagram. Those took a few months, up to 5 months, 2.5 months for Instagram to gain 1 million users, which is really quick. ChatGPT, on the other hand, when it launched in 2022, 5 days. 5 days is all it took to reach 1 million users, which is just incredible and just really shows how quickly new and innovative technologies can have an impact on our lives. It also just shows how impactful this is and will be moving forward. It's really not something that's going to go away. Really important to, try to embrace this and just learn about this new technology, because clearly it is moving very quickly, very influential. We have a joke here that we like to say, like, oh, that was so 5 days ago in the AI world or the ChatGPT world, because truly things are updating and growing and changing so quickly, it can feel hard to keep up. Now, I'd love to hear from all of you in the chat, and this can be super simple. You can just choose a number 1 to 5. How comfortable are you with AI? Now, this is more in the sense of, Have you gotten to use AI, ChatGPT tools before? Have you just kind of heard of it and just getting started and joined this webinar because you just want to learn a little bit more about it? Or 5 is like, I'm an expert on AI, use it every day. I know how, to use all these different tools, or maybe somewhere in the middle. So go ahead and share in the chat. And if any of these discussion questions you don't want to share in the chat, that is totally fine. I encourage you, if you'd like to have just a piece of paper next to you or a Google Doc open where you can kind of jot down some of your thoughts and responses as we go along here and just kind of take some notes on things that you want to bring back into your life after we meet today. Awesome. We've got a couple 4s, a few 1s, a lot of people kind of in the middle. Awesome. Feel free to share your number if you have not yet, if you're comfortable. And no matter what level you are at, I hope that you will get something out of today. And regardless, you'll get access, like I said, to our tool Chat for Schools. So you can try it out and play around with it a little bit as well. All right. So next, we will talk about a few different kind of personas that we often find when it comes to AI and just people's feelings around AI in general. So the last rating you gave yourselves more so on, how much of an expert are you with AI? Do you use a lot? Have you used it? This is more so kind of your feelings about AI in our world and how it's going to be impacting our society moving forward. So we'll go through each persona. And then again, you can share in the chat kind of which persona you resonate with the most. So first, person A. Person A is the enthusiast. You're a staunch supporter of AI chats. You want things like ChatGPT to really revolutionize industries, and you think that they really will and can. You think that they can improve things like customer service, enhance communication. You really think it's a powerful and innovative tool, and you're excited for it to progress and move forward. Person B, the cautiously optimistic. Maybe you're cautiously optimistic about AI chats. You know that there are these potential benefits, but maybe you do have a little bit of concern about some of the ethics and privacy issues that surround AI. Maybe you think that, these tools should be used responsibly. There should be some things in place to keep everyone safe when using these tools, to keep us from, potential misinformation or harm. Person C is the skeptic. You're highly critical of AI chat and similar AI systems like ChatGPT. You might argue that they can perpetuate biases, spread misinformation, affect privacy rights, things like that. You think that there are a lot of ethical concerns around the technology, and really think that if we're going to use these things, there should be strong regulations in place and really make sure that everyone's using them responsibly. Lastly, the critic, person D. Highly critical of AI chats and AI in general. So this is kind of like the most intense. You're maybe a little bit skeptical, really fearful about what this could do for our jobs, dehumanizing work that we do, even a threat to employment and the livelihood of workers. You might argue that, widespread use should really be limited and not used, just regularly throughout our lives. So go ahead and take a moment to think. You're welcome to share in the chat which letter person, resonates the most with you, or take a moment to kind of jot down on a piece of paper what resonates the most with you. And I also challenge you to think, depending on where you're at, is that where you want to be? Or would you rather kind of move towards one of these other personas and learn and grow, regardless of the direction that you think that things should go in? So take a moment to just think about that. Share in the chat if you're comfortable. So you've got a lot of B's between B and C. Makes sense. A and D are kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum, of course. And then think a little bit about where you kind of want to be and how you ideally would be feeling moving forward. Mostly B. Awesome. A lot of people feeling like they're kind of a combo. Makes sense. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. All right. So kind of keep this in your mind as we go out or go through our presentation today and explore these different tools, and kind of come back to this at the end to think about maybe your perspective has changed a little bit, maybe it hasn't. And we will go ahead and keep going. So we understand that, we all have feelings about AI. We really think it's important to explore those feelings and just talk through them. So this isn't necessarily something you have to share in the chat, but I want you also to think about today, what your general emotion is around AI, specifically within the school that you work in or the district that you work in. Think about what you're hearing from students. Are students using this as more of a co-pilot tool, or have you had some experiences where students are using it to cheat? We have come across a lot of different experiences in districts as they navigate, policies around AI, deciding what to do with AI. We know that it can cause a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety as we just kind of figure out what to do. It's kind of a case of we don't know what we don't know yet, right? We're kind of taking things one step at a time since this is so new in this education world and space. But just think about that and think about all the things that we talk about today, how this could help you address AI and, how you want to use it within your district or school, and how you could really address this with students as well. All right, so here are some of the top fears that we hear around AI in the classroom. One, cheating. I think this is kind of the most common, fear that we hear, that everybody hears about within the classroom, worrying about jeopardizing the overall learning experience for students and not wanting them to use it to do all their work for them, which is a very valid concern. Second, how it affects the role of the teacher in the classroom. If there are AI chatbots that students are using to help them, work through a problem, things like that, does that affect the role of the teacher? Does that affect what your day-to-day classroom looks like? And three is data privacy concerns. There are a lot of concerns around tools like ChatGPT or just OpenAI, because a lot of these tools aren't necessarily a safe and secure environment for students to use in school, even if you want it to be open for students and, are excited for the future and potential of students using this in a school environment. There are a lot of concerns with students entering something into platforms like this and, not having things be safe and secure. So, like I said, it's a very valid concern that ChatGPT could jeopardize that learning experience for students and cause them to not be, critical thinkers. Some of the risks that we oftentimes talk about are, ChatGPT giving a student a direct answer, causing misinformation and providing misinformation to students that they might go and take, as the end all be all for their assignment or even their thoughts. That can definitely be concerning. Writing an essay, I feel like, is kind of the most common fear that we have. A lot of times when we talk to districts, we talk about, how their English teachers are really worried about this because it can be really difficult to distinguish what was written by AI and what was written by a student. So we hear you on that concern as well, if that's in your space. And then even just over-reliance on tech. I was talking to a district the other day who said that they noticed students were using a new AI tool where it was essentially just like a little friend that they would just communicate with and talk to throughout the day. And the AI tool was meant to just be someone there to kind of support them and talk to them, which is, maybe could be great in some circumstances, but also we obviously don't want students to completely be relying on technology and want them to be able to kind of separate their experiences a little bit as well. All right, sorry, my slides are being a little laggy right now. So, like I said, overall, what we've been hearing about AI in the districts that we have been working with so far, there's fear from teachers, administrators alike about that, fear of cheating, jeopardizing the learning experience, and also fear around, the safety and data privacy issues when students submit something personal on a tool like ChatGPT. And this has led to lots and lots and lots and lots of bans on ChatGPT in districts. We know that it can be really hard to find a more balanced approach to all of this. But what the reality is that this is kind of disadvantaging students who maybe aren't going to go home and use ChatGPT or learn about AI on their own. The reality is that down the road, whether, students go on to college or a career path down the road, they probably will be expected to understand and know how to use a lot of these tools. So we feel that it's really important to address this with students, to allow them to explore the potential that AI has to offer, and ensure that all students have access to learning about these different tools, and also reaching them at a younger age so that they know how to use these tools appropriately when it does come to, writing an entire essay in those older grades, for example. All right. So another discussion question for you to think about, jot down your feelings and responses to either on a piece of paper or in the chat. Obviously, like I mentioned, AI is kind of an inevitable part of our future and our students' futures at this moment. But everything that you do and that you have as an educator cannot be replaced with AI. So I want you to just take a moment and think about, before we go super in depth with AI, think about some of the things that you have and that you do in your day-to-day that could never be replaced by AI. So I'll just give everyone a minute. I feel like I've been talking at you for quite a while already, so I'll give you just a minute to sit with your thoughts and just kind of think about this. These are all wonderful in the chat. And I think the common theme here is obviously just that personal touch. I love how a lot of people said empathy, just understanding students, building relationships with them. I love just greeting them at the door, right? Which can make or break a student's day. All the relationships. Absolutely. Wonderful. So overall, we of course want you to remember and know that AI will never be able to replace those human connections. It will never be perfect. It will never be the end all be all approach. It just won't. Oh, I love that. Can't give a hug to a kid when they really need it. That is definitely true. Amazing. Wonderful. Well, we'll keep going with our conversation, but just keep these things in mind as we jump into AI and talk about all the things that it can do. Just keep in mind all the things that it will never replace as well. All right. So I'm going to read this, and I want you all to kind of think about and take a guess at what the blocked off word is here. It says, picketers said elementary school use of blank would leave students with no reason to learn computational skills. I know how my thought process worked as a child, Saxon said. If I could use a shortcut, I would save my homework and go home and do it on the blank. There was no sense doing it laboriously. We've got to make the use of a blank in elementary school a no-no. Any guesses as to what this is about? It is a metaphor commonly used when comparing AI and different tools that we've been introduced to in the past. Calculator, computer. Aha. All right. You guys are too good. You guessed it. It is the calculator. So really interesting to think about. And like I said, oftentimes a metaphor that we use when talking about AI, the calculator was scary at first. It really was this tool that students could use and go home and do a lot of their math homework on. I know as a fourth grade teacher, I would sometimes give my students math homework, and it was, adding and subtracting large numbers. They could go home and they could do that on their calculator if they wanted to. But I had those conversations with them about, hey, I know that you can go home and do this using your calculator, but in order to learn and understand the concepts that are necessary for you to know and understand moving forward, it's really important that you do this on your own and without that tool. So very similar conversations that I know a lot of teachers are having with their students right now about how to address AI in kind of a similar way. Like, hey, we know that this is an awesome tool. You shouldn't use it all the time. Here are the times where you can use it and it'll benefit you the most. All right. So just consider this. Obviously, like we said, a lot of things that we have and do, cannot be replaced with AI, but some of these tools can really kind of be your co-pilot and give you back a lot more time, which is so valuable as an educator. We know that. And one of our main goals at Skillstruck, I'd say, is to save educators time and stress and energy they could otherwise use on other things to support your students. So with that, this is just a quick list of some examples. Obviously, there are so many out there that we'll explore today, but just a quick list of some different things that you can use our tool and really any AI tool like ChatGPT to do and create. So all the way from icebreakers up to, organizing data, creating assessments, lesson planning, creating simple things like exit tickets, newsletters. I'll give you an example of that in just a moment as well. And just kind of be thinking about different things that you do day to day as a teacher, educator, admin, or even again, just in your personal life that you could kind of automate and, get some help from AI tools like Chat for Schools and ChatGPT moving forward. So I won't go through all these just for sake of time, so I want to make sure we have some time to explore on the platform. But these are just some intended use cases from some people who have currently partnered with us with our new AI tool, Chat for Schools. Just some really interesting ways that I think districts are planning to use this, for example, in a middle school debate class. A lot of districts are starting a little bit slower and just kind of introducing the tool to teachers. Starting small at first and kind of getting a feel for how teachers are reacting with the tool, letting them explore and use it a little bit on their own at first, and then moving on to using this with students. And then overall, just wanting to enhance learning environments, differentiate using the tool, making sure that students are collaborating in a safe and secure way and understanding how to use this tool. And just, overall responsibility and wanting to help promote responsible technology use for students from a very young age. All right, so let's take a look at some examples of how teachers can use AI or administrators or really anybody. So I'll show you a couple different sides to our platform today. So this is our platform, Chat for Schools. It's a tool that we've built out under our company, Skillstruck. Overall, our company is a K-12 computer science and coding curriculum, but we recently built out this tool, Chat for Schools, that's a safe and secure environment that both students and teachers can use. It utilizes the ChatGPT API and kind of creates like a one-way street. So it can generate responses on the platform, but then everything that's entered back into the platform on Chat for Schools isn't being spit out to feed the large language model. So it makes it a lot more safe and secure. We're in control of that data. But I do want to give a disclaimer here. All of the things that we do and talk about today, you can go home and do on ChatGPT or on any platform like that that you want to use. We'll just use ours today because it's an easy, safe, and secure way to just get everyone logged in at once. And also just in case, if you're still at school and your Wi-Fi might have ChatGPT or another AI tool blocked, you should still be able to use the demo account that I'll give you access to in just a moment here. I'll walk you through just a few examples that I created prior to our meeting today. This first one is one of my favorites, a newsletter. I always wanted to provide these beautiful, wonderful, detailed newsletters to the parents of the students that I was working with, but the reality was sending something like this out every week or even every month sometime just took a lot of time. And it was something that I would have loved to automate in those moments if I could have. So you can see here, I gave it just a little blurb. I said, I'm a fourth grade teacher. We've got a field trip on Monday. Here's the things that we learned this week. Students have the week off at Thanksgiving, but parents need to sign up for a conference. Also remind parents that if they bring birthday treats, store-bought and nut-free is very important. So as you can see, I gave it a pretty brief example here. I didn't elaborate very much. I also didn't make it sound very nice or, warm at all. And Chat for Schools gave me this beautiful, beautiful newsletter that kind of fleshed everything out, gave it a nice warm tone. And the awesome thing about this is if there's certain parts of this that I don't like or I want to change, I can copy and paste it and make those edits real quick myself, or I can send it another message and have it regenerate the same thing for me in a way that works best. So one example that I always love to share is that newsletter example. Second, translation. Chat for Schools and ChatGPT are amazing at translating text into really any language that you can probably think of. I, as a teacher, had a lot of students that came to me not speaking any English. My first year of teaching, I was told like 2 days before school started that I had a student coming from Russia who didn't speak any English. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I make this student feel welcome and not just terrified as they join our classroom? So I would love to have a tool like this where I can easily translate back and forth, even have a conversation within the platform, and try and make that student feel a little bit more welcome and just give them something in their native language to start the year off. The next example here is actually an example for a student. Something that we have available on Chat for Schools is the ability to create a personal tutor. I did this one in the theme of Harry Potter and Hermione Granger, specifically in the spirit of Halloween last week, even though it was literally blizzarding in Illinois, as all of you guys know. So you can see here that it's giving me a nice prompt kind of in the theme of Harry Potter, but also fourth grade opinion writing. So I ask it, what should I write my essay on? It gives me a few little ideas. And then I ask it, can you just write it for me? And the tutor actually says, it's actually really important for you to do this, yourself and actually spend some time thinking about what you want to write it on. Gives me some really awesome examples. I know as a teacher, opinion writing and just students coming up with that initial topic or idea for something they wanted to write about was oftentimes a really big struggle. And I would sit with every student and talk them through, what are you interested? What do you have a strong opinion about? And go on and on. And to have a tool like this that can kind of just get them at least part of the way there, I think is really amazing. So then I say, maybe I can write it about this. And it starts by giving me a few more prompts and examples of, okay, let's think through this. Here's how you can get started. The last example I'll show you guys here is some ideas to relieve stress while you're commuting. I used to commute from the suburbs into Chicago, and I have had a very long commute. If any of you do that, you know the struggle. So I was always looking for different ways to kind of wind down at the end of the day and just de-stress after a long day of teaching. And this gave me some really amazing examples, 10 different examples of different things, really detailed and incredible. So just another way to use it, even in your personal life, or just to make your life a little bit easier. All right, we'll go back to our slides here. And before we jump into the platform, I'm going to give you just a few tips on prompt engineering, which a lot of you probably know a little bit about prompt engineering yourself as well. But just a few tips here. When you write prompts into any AI tool or Chat for Schools like we'll do today, these are a few things to keep in mind. You really want to be clear and specific, use structured prompts, give examples and constraints, and then always ask further questions. So I'll go through each of these just a little bit, just to give you an example of what I mean. So first, this one's pretty self-explanatory, right? You want to be clear, you want to be specific. You don't want to ask a super vague prompt, like tell me how to teach computer science. The chat will respond back to you and probably will give you something pretty useful. But the more clear and concise you are in your prompts, the more likely it is that the chat is going to respond with something that is really going to be helpful to you. Now, of course, if you enter a vague prompt to start, you can have a conversation back and forth to get to where you want to be, but starting with a really clear and specific prompt is going to get you there a lot faster. Next, using structured and sequential prompts. So if you're asking the chat to do, a big task for you, like this example where we're asking it to help plan an elementary community STEM night at our school, I need activity ideas, accommodation needs, and an organized schedule. So instead of just giving it that first prompt, giving it some ideas of, here's what I'm thinking, and letting it kind of, work with you and play around with those ideas and give you some things that are a little bit more fleshed out. All right. Next, providing examples and constraints. So this is an example of using this in the situation where you want to create, for example, a math problem for your students. Maybe you're creating story problems and you want some similar problems, but want them to be just a little bit different than the one that you've already created. So giving the chat examples and also providing it with constraints. So like, don't make the other problems about this or this. Make sure one of the versions is more challenging. Maybe make the other version a little bit easier. Also, maybe taking into consideration the demographics of your class, or that some of them are English language learners. And then finally, this one's also a little bit self-explanatory, but asking further questions. The chat is not perfect. It's not always going to spit out the exact thing that you want it to the first time you ask it a question. So if you don't get what you're looking for the first time around, ask it follow-up prompts. Keep going, keep pushing it to give you what you want it to give you. All right, so overall, better questions and instructions are going to give you better results when using tools like AI in general and Chat for Schools in this case. All right, so now that I've talked your ears off, I'm going to give you some time to explore, and I'm really excited for you to all jump on the platform. So we'll take a little bit of time today where you can just take some time to explore. I gave you some ideas on the screen here if you want to play around with something specific. Option one, I said, choose one task from your to-do list, personal or professional. Use this time to get something done using the chat. I know I always like to, make the most of my time, try and get something done when I can. So if that's you, go ahead and choose something from your to-do list and try to have the chat help you accomplish that and see how it does. Option two, you can explore some of the different lessons and content that we have in Chat for Schools, which I'll show you in just a moment. There's a lot of different content in there. If you just want to take this time to kind of read through some of the lessons, watch a video or two, that is totally fine as well. Option three, you can choose. Play around with the chat, collaborate with one another, brainstorm, either on your own or in the Zoom chat here, and just think about how you could use this moving forward. So totally up to you. But I will show you, before I give you your demo account link, when you create your account in just a moment here, this is what the screen will look like when you log in. So I'll give you a link to create your account. It'll email you a demo account link, and then you can come into our Chat for Schools platform here. These accounts will be active for about 2 weeks. And if you want additional access beyond that, you can of course reach out to me and let me know. You won't be able to enroll students or sections on these accounts because they're just demo accounts for you to play around with. But there are some different management tools that we have in place that you're welcome to check out here, like managing students on the chat. You can turn the chat on and off, see their chat history, different things like that in that first section here. In the middle is where you'll find some different teacher resources. So we do have a few lesson plans built out to help address this with students if you want to take a peek at those. We have some PD resources as well. And then we also have a learning studio here that gives you kind of more of a structured experience. You can totally play around with this as well. Create a quiz, create an assignment, create a lesson plan, change the level of a text. There are some really amazing things that you can do in this learning studio if you'd rather kind of have a little bit more structure as you use this AI technology. Lastly, if you click on the green button, that will bring you into the chat itself that we were looking at before. So this page right here, you can start a new chat and ask it anything you'd like. And then you can also click into tutors here if you want to talk to it in a specific, subject area or context. And then we also do have some lessons on the left-hand side here that you can see. If I extend my screen, we've got some student-facing content here. And if you toggle on our PD lessons, you can explore some specific PD content as well. So a lot to take a look at and explore. That's why I'll give you some time here to do that. So go ahead and you can go to this link. I will also send it in the chat in just a second here. And go ahead and create your own account if you'd like. And use this time to explore. Create something, see how the chat responds back to you. Just play around with the tool however you'd like. And let's say we'll take about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back together as a group in 10 minutes, around 4:20-ish. We'll come back for questions and just kind of final wrap up and things like that. Awesome. And please, if you have any questions or issues as you create your account or anything like that, please feel free to throw them in the chat. And myself or Stephanie or our support team will help you with anything that you're having trouble with at this point in time. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any issues or have any trouble finding anything. That is a great question, Josh. Yes, the way that we have created the ChatGPT or use the ChatGPT API within our platform, we have created a safe and secure environment where we're able to sign off on DPAs agreements. We do have a district in Illinois using this product already, so we were able to go through that process with them. And essentially just us being more in control of that data has allowed us to be, confident that this is safe and secure for students and also teachers. We still give the disclaimer of like, don't share your personal information just like you wouldn't on any, technology tool or the internet in general. But in case a student or teacher did, we have, different parameters in place so it's not being spit back out and feeding the large language model. Great question. And I have my contact information at the end of the slides too, in case you have more questions about how that works or how all the data privacy and everything looks on our end or, our terms of service. I'm happy to share more about that. So you can always email me and reach out and I can share more. We'll take a look at that for you, Beth. Give me just a moment. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, if you go to your email, you maybe got a link in case the page kind of loaded funky. It should email you a link. Awesome. Thank you guys are also helpful. Yeah, it should send you a link, and that's the only way that you sign in. So as long as you have that link, you can click into it and just use that to log back in. If you have any issues refreshing, that usually helps. Sometimes OpenAI will be down. So like sometimes if OpenAI is having an issue, that could cause an issue on the platform too. That doesn't happen very often at all, but just in case, you can always check there too. Josh, yes, I believe so. Stephanie might have a better answer than me of how to view the recording, but I believe you'll just receive the recording of the presentation, and that includes my contact info and everything, so you can forward that along or just share, the links to the slides or anything that you'd like. Oh, that's okay, Carrie. No worries. Whatever works best is totally fine. You can use your personal email. It's no big deal. All right, we'll take like 2 more minutes and then we can come back together and share and chat a little bit about your experiences, and then we can take some time for questions. All right, go ahead and come back to the Zoom. I'll just leave you with a few final thoughts. We can take some time for questions and maybe get off a couple minutes early since I know it's the end of the day for you all. All right. So again, just a few things to think about. What did you accomplish while exploring the chat? What do you want to explore more in the future? Like I mentioned, this will be active for a couple weeks. So you guys are more than welcome to revisit this, take some time to review any of the tools that you didn't get to today, show it to any others, create, use it, however is going to be most helpful to you. And hopefully you were able to spend some time today making the most of the tool and just getting a little bit more comfortable with AI. A reminder of the things that AI cannot replace, all of these wonderful things that you guys already mentioned in the chat, like human connection, motivation, personalization, creativity, empathy, so many more things that will never be replaced by AI, especially in an education environment. That relationship and connection that students have with teachers is just so important and will never be replaced by any tools like the one that we use today. So final thought to leave you with, just maybe think about one simple way that you can use AI to save you a little bit of time this week, or a little bit of stress, or something you can do to be a little bit creative with AI. Maybe that's as simple as, what should I make for dinner tonight? So hopefully you guys are able to utilize this tool a little bit over the next couple of weeks. And of course, here's my contact information. The slides were linked at the beginning, but I can send those again in the chat if anybody needs them. That URL to create your own demo account. Also, if you're interested at all in having a full demo of this platform or computer science resources or really anything at all, you can go to that Get Demo second link there, or just reach out to me via email. I'm always happy to help and happy to share more at any time. So thank you guys so much. And I think with that, we can take a little bit of time for questions.
All right, Margaret, thank you so much. That was super informative, and I loved getting to play with Chat for Schools also.